What's up, everybody? Welcome back. This is Top 5, and this coincides with my 40 for 40 of Home Alone, which is one of my favorite films of all time. And I looked at these actors, and technically I usually do the one that, of the cast, that I've seen the most films, which should be Catherine O'Hara, but a lot of Catherine O'Hara's film roles are really small sort of voice roles. There's a lot of things in there, and I don't feel like that's the best representation of her career. I think there's a lot of things of Catherine's that I missed. And I think it's inevitably just going to lead to number one, Schitt's Creek, Moira Rose. I don't think that's really an interesting list. So believe it or not, I'm actually going with one of the least. I've seen the same amount of Joe Pesci and Macaulay Culkin roles in films. I don't know what that says, but it's true. So, I'm doing Joe Pesci. And I'm doing Joe Pesci with the trepidation and the knowledge that I know exactly what this top 5 is supposed to be. There are 4 films that anybody who is worth their medal is supposed to be putting in the top 4. There are 4 roles. Everybody, it's like a non-negotiable thing. Problem is, one of those 4 roles I haven't seen. I acknowledge it's supposed to be there. I don't want to tell you what it is because I'm embarrassed. It almost stopped me from doing this list. But I'm going to see if I can work my way around it, and we just won't talk about it. But I acknowledge the fact that there will be a role here that a lot of people will be like, what the fuck? What the fuck? What? And I'm just going to pretend like that film doesn't exist. And therefore, those people who are not as familiar with Joe Pesci's resume will just enjoy this top 5. And we'll have a fun time. So, anyway. And I will have honorable mentions. I still won't mention it in honorable mentions. We're just going to pretend like it doesn't exist. Because I'm too embarrassed to say, I have not seen blank. Yes. So, coming in at number 5, I'm actually going to put Bupkis here. And I think what he's doing on Bupkis right now is great. I know it's a TV show. But if you're watching Bupkis, it sort of reminds you everything about what you like about Joe Pesci. It reminds you that even now, he can just kind of walk in. And he can walk into anything. He can walk into a Pete Davidson Peacock sitcom, and he can own it. He owns that show. The show is literally about Pete Davidson's life, and I promise you Joe Pesci is the most interesting thing in it. Even if you're a fan of Pete Davidson, it's impossible to not know every time Joe Pesci is in the scene that he owns the scene. I'm sure Pete is just honored to have worked with Joe Pesci, as I would be, in that regard. So that's my number 5. Number 4 is Casino. I think with Pesci, you run the risk of putting too many gangster roles in there, which is what I kind of like about Bupkis, is that it's not really a gangster role for him. I mean, he kind of feels like a guy from the streets, but it's not a defined mafia or an intelligence seeking type person. It's not like a spy or anything like that. He plays kind of like a certain type of role in almost every single film. So he's a wise guy all the time, and Casino is still a great performance of his. I just, I can't have the list be all of his, wise guy roles. There are some that you can't leave out for sure, but also Casino is sort of representative of what you'll end up hearing in my honorable mentions. So yes, he's great in Casino. In a supporting role, he's always like third billing, and he's always great. So, coming up, number 3 on the list is Home Alone. I'm going to put Home Alone on here. That's the reason why he's here. It's a great role for him and Daniel Stern. It's a little bit unlike other things that he's done. I love the fact that he couldn't curse, so he just mumbles random unintelligible things. That's how he got all those... is because he knew he was in a kid's film, and it was his way of stopping himself from cursing. It was just saying really unintelligible things. I think it's a smart performance. I don't know how he feels about it, but I do think that the Wet Bandits, as you can see, hopefully you can see, if you're blind and you subscribe to my channel, I'm wearing a Home Alone shirt with the Wet Bandits on it. Joe Pesci is on my t-shirt, which is another reason why I decided to do this video. I was like, I have a shirt with Joe Pesci on it. So how can I not choose to do this film? How can I not do a Joe Pesci video? And then how can I do this video and not put Home Alone? So it's very weird. Number 2 is Raging Bull. He's great in the film and he won an Oscar. So the problem is, when you think of Raging Bull, you think of De Niro, you don't think of Pesci. And that's why it's the number 2 film for me. Is I think everybody, when you say Raging Bull, it's De Niro. De Niro takes that film over. It's one of the few times where Joe Pesci is great, but he actually does not stand taller than anybody else in the film. And my honorable mentions, just to throw a couple out there, before I do my number 1, I would say The Irishman. He was really great, and that was nice to see him do that as a comeback. And I think, even though it didn't stand a chance in hell of making my list, I have to acknowledge that he is hilarious in the Lethal Weapon movies. He doesn't really do anything in the Lethal Weapon movies except be comic relief. That's sort of his sole purpose in life. But he's good at being comic relief. But, yeah, I don't want to just keep putting mafia types in, like, have Joe Pesci's top 5 just be mafia roles. Number 1 is obviously Goodfellas. This is the film where he's not the lead, and I arguably think he is. Like, I think he dominates this film. He takes it over. He owns it. He has so much magnetism. Everything is great. That, the "What About Me Is Funny" scene is so iconic. It's so fucking good. He is so good in this film. It is everything. This is the peak of him playing all those wise guy roles and putting everything into this role and just rolling with it. And Scorsese giving him the kind of room and breadth to be able to take this role to the next level. Goodfellas is an excellent film. And even though this film has stellar performances from Ray Liotta and Robert De Niro, I think Joe Pesci actually outshines both of them. And he steals the whole damn thing. So, Goodfellas is my pick at the top of Joe Pesci's list. Did you figure out which movie I stepped over? Let me know in the comments. I'll give you a hint. It wasn't The Good Shepherd. And also, if maybe you're the guy who thinks 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag, you know what? I will openly admit, I have not seen 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. And if that's your favorite Joe Pesci performance, you know what? I think somewhere out there's a person whose favorite film of all time is Ringmaster. And we all live to our own drum beats. So, good for you. Good for you if your favorite Joe Pesci film is 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. But I have not seen it, and that I don't have a problem saying. I didn't see 8 Heads in a Duffel Bag. So, thanks for watching, thanks for subscribing, and I will see you guys on the other side.